What's going on, gamers and gals? It's your boy Neosynthesis coming back at you with the third and final of the Platinum free, or the third to play Platinum Season 1 decks. Platinum 1 Season 1, excuse me, very top rank. So we are still running a very similar deck, but I have made some changes to the peripheral cards, and I'll kind of talk about why I like them over some stuff that I was running before. Okay, so first and foremost, we are running the still same 13 Zoo package. So I like this percentage of the deck, just being the 13 over 40, or that's, what is that, 6.5 over 23 and 10 ish Zoos, which is pretty good. I think that's right. Please don't criticize my math, but 13 Zoos has been pretty awesome. I've enjoyed running the 10 Zoodiacs, the 3 Tenkies. So if you guys don't know what Tenki does, it just searches a Zoo. And then it also adds 100 attack while it's on the board. So we don't really necessarily care about what Tenki's secondary effect is, but I will go through all 3 of the Zoos. So first of all, Thoroughblade, which is like the last good Zoodiac main deck monster that is like actually a good card you want to draw on its own, is just basically says that if this card's a normal special summon, you can discard 1 Zoodiac card. If you do, draw 1 card. Cool. And then it also gives XYZ monsters made with this material the effect that if it inflicts a monster, if it attacks a monster, and it will pierce through them in defense mode. So I'm sure you guys are familiar with effects like that. The next best Zoodiac in the deck is Ram Ram. Ram Ram just has the super crucial effect that if this card is destroyed by battle or card effect, we can target 1 Zoodiac monster in our graveyard except Ram Ram, special summon it. That is super awesome. Zoodiac Ram Ram's not even once per turn, so theoretically, if you had multiple Ram Rams, say, you get multiple resummons, so pretty pog if you ask me. And then it also has the secondary effect that if you make a trap card that targets this card, if you're making XCs and a trap card targets this card has material, you can just detach material and negate it, so that's pretty cool. And then for the third Zoodiac, this is like this is the Zoodiac that we run 3 of that's not necessarily the greatest. So during either player's turn, as a quick effect, we can target 1 Beast Warrior XYZ monster and attach this card to it as material. So that can be good to get creative games and get over things that you otherwise normally wouldn't. But essentially, this card is just run as an extra Zoo name. Also, this effect right here, if an extra Zoo monster that has this material, a Zoo basically has this material, you can detach 1 XYZ material, or you don't even have to detach 1 XYZ material. It's just a one-sided DD Warrior Lady effect. So sometimes you can get over weird stuff that you normally wouldn't be able to have an out to with this card, so do keep that effect in mind. It does come up. And then Bunny Blast. Bunny Blast I have criticized in the past, but I've since come around to on my my Bunny Blast enjoying. This card is super awesome. Basically, the only effect that you care about is that it's destroyed by battle or card effect. We can target 1 Zoo card in our graveyard, add it back to our hand. So it's not necessarily the greatest because it requires a lot more setup than Ram Ram, and Ram Ram. Because typically we want to have something to do with our Zoo card as well once it's destroyed. So it's not really doing too much for us on turn 1. It is just the 10th Zoodiac main deck monster that we're running, and it's also that secondary effect does come up sometimes. There's a video on my channel of me looping Bunny Blast and Ram Ram like 5 times and beating an Elvish player. So pretty funny. Those cards are not good. Those cards are not bad. Sorry, those cards are not bad. And then I do just want to quickly mention the stats of all these cards. I'll just run through them real quick. 800, 1200, 400. This is your biggest attacker, 1600. This is your biggest defense, 2000. And then the reason I mention it is because all of the Zoodiac extract monsters gain the stats of the cards that they are equipped with, that are Zoo. And then also the other effect of all the Zoodiac cards, we'll just go ahead and say this, is that once per turn you can special summon. So this is all the Zoodiac extract monsters have this effect that you can just special summon it on top of any Zoo monster you want. Yeah, super good. 1 card XCs. You definitely can't complain. So yeah, that's pretty much it for the Zoo core stuff. We run 3 Pot of Desires. This card's really good. It's limited in TCG for a reason. We don't have engine requirement cards in our deck per se. We're not doing a whole lot of searching. We just have a lot of really good cards in our deck and 13 Zoos. That's pretty much it, guys. Just 13 zoos and good cards. Yeah, and then this is probably the worst card because it's not necessarily a going first card and it's not necessarily a going second card. It's just kind of an extender card, and it's a card that I want in my deck so that when a game gets really grinded down to a simplified state that I have it in my deck so that I might be able to just win a blowout situation like that. I think that it's particularly good in this deck because one material XYZs obviously are super strong, and one material XYZ will always get you back whatever XYZ is in the graveyard, even our limited one. I can go through a combo, the bread and butter zoo combo, but when I get to the cards that are required for it. But essentially, all you need to know is that one zoo monster is all you need. So this is like your 14th zoo monster once you've already got one in the graveyard. All right. So that is all of the like engine cards, the cards that like do stuff. The next section I will talk about is the hand traps. So we are running 3 Maxi, 3 Ash. These cards are just really strong, being able to draw cards whenever your opponent's special summoning. So against any super good first turn deck that's not Eldritch, this is insanely strong against, but Maxi's always worth running even against Eldritch because just getting 1 draw is good enough, and typically you can find 2 in that matchup. But against any other meta deck, this card's completely off the walls, insane, not balanced. Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring, it's pretty much just good against everything right now. Stopping an ad, stopping any of that kind of stuff is super, super, super strong. I have this deck list a little bit wrong. It should be... That's the only change. Yeah, that's the only change. So we're running 3 Ash just because it's super good against everything in the format. Sorry, I kind of like blanked out on that card, and I was like, wait, because I made a lot of iterations of the deck. I had like a 42 card version of the deck at one point last night, but I actually had the wrong card in there because I was just cleaning it up. I was just cleaning it up from what I had made it, but I should have done that before, so I do apologize. I will talk about that card as a going second card. The card that I just added, and I removed a going second card and added in what I think is a better going second card. So Ash is just super strong, being able to stop any tutor, special summon from the deck, or send from the deck. So just knowing when you use your Ash is super critical. Yeah, Ash the right cards, guys. And then for the third hand trap, we're going to play... So we play a ton of hand traps in this deck, and I'll get you guys a count at the end. But just for now, we're at 9. We play Nibiru, so if your opponent normal special summons 5 more monsters during their main phase, we can just tribute everything, give them a token with a bunch of stats, but that token is just the freest Trident pop of all time, and then we get a 3k beater. So, super good. Usually you just want to wait until the end of your opponent's turn before they make Appaloosa, or they make Herald of Ultimateness, though, because otherwise Nibiru will just completely blow them out, or Nibiru will get negated if they make a negate for it. So, make sure you do this before they Appaloosa, guys. Just, if they can make Appaloosa, just Nibiru them. Then it's better, probably. Like almost always better, unless there's some situations where it might not be. But so don't take my word as exact gospel. So we're gonna run 3 Nibiru. So I think these are the top 3 hand traps in the format. Nibiru is obviously not very good against Eldritch, but I think it's worth running 3 of, because Eldritch is actually a deck you're not super scared of, because you can most of the time blow them out with a Zeus proc and just win the game from there. We're running some more anti-Eldritch cards as well. So we have the Skullmeisters. Skullmeister just says that when your opponent activates a card that's going to be in their graveyard, we can send this card from our hand to the graveyard and just negate it. Super strong against all the Eldritch traps, spells, and the Eldlord himself. And the other card is DD Crow, which is really particularly better against Eldritch, I suppose, because we can banish any of their traps. The only thing we can't banish is their end phase traps, because they'll banish themselves as a cost, I do believe. So we can't negate that, essentially. And then, but the DD Crow is good for in the Drytron Mirror, and it's really good against Eldritch. Obviously, being able to DD Crow the Eldlord himself, being able to DD Crow card like Herald of Ultimateness or the Ritual Spells. You just DD Crow the Ritual Spell twice, and typically that's going to be the game for the Drytron player. So we're at 11, 12, 13 hand traps, 14, 15 hand traps, because we run 2 infinite impermanents. This is like a decent, it's not the worst going first card, because we are able to set it and essentially get its effect as well. But we treat it as a hand trap because if we control no other cards, we can activate this card from our hand. So essentially, this card just says target one phase-up monster on your opponent controls, negate its effects until the end of this turn. This card was set before activation on the field, and this is a relevant effect as well. If this card was set before activation, is on the field at resolution. For the rest of the turn, all other spell and traps in this column are negated. If you control no cards, you can activate this card from hand. So obviously, it's super good You can even, if you set this card, you can negate any spell or trap if they've got a monster in their zone, in that particular zone, or you have a monster in that zone. Or, sorry, yeah, no, it has to be a monster they zone. So just be careful of the imperm column. Negating a spell and trap in a monster is super good, but just negating a monster is good enough. And then this is obviously better than Effect Veiler, because we can activate this card during even like the battle phase, or like the end phase, or the draw phase, or you know, whenever. Whereas Effect Veiler is just during their main phase. Yeah, Imperm is like always better than Veiler. They're both ultras. Craft Imperm, not Veiler. There might be some situations where Veiler is better than I cannot think of right now, but as of right now, I think Imperm is slightly stronger. So we're running A. So it is 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 hand trap lineup. So that's pretty insane. We got 13 zoos, 15 hand traps, and then the rest of the deck are going second cards. So yeah. Wait, so it's only 3, 6, 9, 12, 15. Yeah, it's 15 going second cards. Or 15 hand traps. 13 zoos, counting the tankies, and there's also 3 draw cards that I didn't mention. Mom's Reborn. But the going second cards, we just have, I guess we really only have 7, 8 going second cards. We have the Harpy's Feather Duster, super strong, just being able to destroy all spells and all set spells and traps, or all spells and traps your opponent controls, period. Lightning Storm is better than Harpy's Feather Duster. Harpy's Feather Duster is really good. So perhaps if we could run 3 Harpy's Feather Duster, we would run that and just the 1 Lightning Storm. But maybe it would be 2 and 2. But Lightning Storm is really good because it's more versatile than Harpy's Feather Duster. Obviously, we can out monster boards with it. Yeah, just being able to destroy your opponent's whole board just because you have no face-up cards is really strong. This card does conflict with Tenki a little bit, but you Zeus your Tenki so often that this typically does not come up. And you draw this card, and you use it typically for your first turn, which is turn 2 of the entire duel, so you're never going to have a card active in that situation. We run the 1 Call by the Grave. I guess I'll talk about this because I just took Judgment out for it, but essentially this is a card that's good going first and going second. So it's good going second because we can simply stop a hand trap like Maxi, or like Maxi, Ash Blossom, any hand trap that will discard itself to the graveyard we can stop, which is super clutch. And there's also some cool things like the Eldord that's super amazing to call by the grave. So essentially the reason I'm running the 3 Nibiru is because I feel like I'm strong enough. So I just want to explain why I'm not running, because there was consideration I think at one point to run 2 Nibiru and 2 Called by the Grave, but the reason we're only running 1 Called by the Grave and 3 Nibiru is because I feel like against any grindy deck that Called by the Grave is really good against, i.e. just Eldritch, I would honestly feel better sacrificing a couple percentage win points in those matchups to help my other matchups, which are much harder, much worse. So yeah, sometimes you just draw your 1-of Called by the Grave. Yeah, this is really a flex card. A lot of the cards, aside from the Zoos and the Desires, are in my opinion, flex cards. So you can tailor this deck in a lot of different ways. Okay, and then for the last 3 going second cards, the most insane going second card in the format. The reason that I want to play this deck in the first place was a card called Forbidden Droplets. So this card says, send any number of other cards from your hand and/or field to the graveyard. Choose that many effect monsters your opponent controls until the end of this turn. Their attack is halved and their effect is negated. Their negated is effect. Excuse me. This card's activation cannot be responded to with the same type of card, monster, spell, or trap as the card sent to the graveyard to activate this effect. You can only activate 1 Forbidden Droplet per turn. This card's completely crazy. I think I've got a couple of videos on my channel, I think, showcasing off how good Forbidden Droplets can be into an established board. But until you play with this card, you just don't realize how numerous its applications are and just how strong this card is in general in the meta. And the reason that I am even playing Zoodiac in the first place is because I feel like there's so many good going second cards in the game that this Skeleton Crew Zoodiac, you know, after a million bans, is still good enough to win. Alright, so that's the main deck. Now we're going to move on to the extra deck. First and foremost, I'm going to talk about the stuff that is not Zoo, because otherwise we'll be talking about the Zoo stuff too often. So I'm sure you guys know what Zeus does, but if you don't, you can summon this card if an XYZ battled this turn. We have a great way to attack directly, even if they've got a board, so we're not worried about any of that kind of stuff. We also... So this card basically just says detach 2 material, blow up the whole board. It's not once per chain, completely crazy. This card deserves to be limited. It's pretty unfair. Yeah, no lie. And then next up on the menu, we have this Vespinado, and Vespinado. Okay, Drill Driver Vespinado. Just essentially a card you overlay on top of your Zoodiac XYZs when they have 0 attack. You can't XYZ summon. You can't just use this as an extra material for Zeus, which is a mistake that I made at first. The other beauty of this card is that if your opponent destroys it with a card effect, you can special summon as level 4 or lower monster from your graveyard, so that's pretty cool. And then finally, we'll talk about F-Zero. So you just make F-Zero with 2 of your Zoodiac XYZ monsters. You just overlay them both into F-Zero, and then you overlay Utopic Draco Future on top of them. We essentially run Draco Future. It is just a card that cannot be destroyed by battle or card effects, which is pretty good in low elo and pretty good against any rogue. And then the big effect of this card is that once per turn, when your opponent activates a monster effect, we can attach 1 material from this card to negate the activation. And if it was on the field, we get control of it. So, Mr. Steel Girl in full effect. This card is really, really good. You know, make it on your first turn. It's really bad to make it on your first turn, but sometimes you're forced to go first with this deck. And hopefully this, with a couple of hand traps, maybe a set Forbidden Droplets or a set Called by the Grave or a set Imperm, is going to be enough. Maybe you have a crazy enough hand that you can go Draco Future plus Trident. That's not horrible. Anyway, without any further ado, I'm going to get into the Zoodiac cards. I'm just going to talk about them in order of importance. So the very first and most important card is the Zoodiac Trident. So all the Zoo effects, all the Zoo XYZ share the exact same effect, that you can just special summon them once per turn by using 1 Zoo monster we control with a different name. Super cool. Nice, Pog. And then this card basically just says, once per turn, we can attach 1 XYZ material, target 1 face-up card on the field, and destroy it. So it's super fair. This is basically the boss monster of the deck. This is the disruption that we get, that we're going to end on over and over and over and over again. This card also has niche applications popping your own cards, like Tinky, Bunny Blast, and Ram Ram. Popping Tinky just to get a material in the grave, popping Ram Ram to obviously get a Ram Ram effect. Bunny Blast to get a Bunny Blast effect. So there's some applications for him. The next most important card we're going to talk about is Shokunai. So Shokunai is basically the reason that we can play this deck. If there was no Shokunai, we could not play Zoo whatsoever, because we would essentially be we'd be out of luck when our Trident died, because we would have just about no plays. And it dies a lot. It gets used as material a lot. So essentially Shokunai just says we can resummon a Zoo monster from our graveyard, but its effects are negated until the end of the turn, and it can't be used as XYZ material. So it's not quite as good as we can just summon a Zoo back and just make another Zoo and then make F-Zero. If we could do that, this deck would be broken, but I'm neither here nor there. Or if we had more than 1 Trident, this deck would be really good, but 1 Trident is all we get, so we're oftentimes resummoning the Trident. It's not going to have any effects, and it's not going to be able to be used as material, but we just overlay on the Tiger Mortar, and Tiger Mortar's effect is that we can just essentially detach a material to attach a material from our graveyard onto a face-up XYZ monster. We are always pretty much attaching the extra material to Trident. Trident getting that. Basically, the play is normal summon a Zoo if our Trident is in the graveyard. Normal summon a Zoo, overlay into this guy, who's Hammer Kong. We just use him as an in-between card to either keep the attack of our normal summon Zoos on the Zoo card, so we can detach him, like first, put him in the graveyard. He does not really have a card effect at all. We don't care about it, but don't ever end your turn on Hammer Kong because he will detach one XYZ material from himself. Yeah, that's pretty trash. At least he doesn't destroy himself. Borbo is actually kind of important. Alright, so sorry, I kind of like stopped midway through explaining that combo, I guess, but anyway, you're normal summoning Zoo, you're overlaying Hammer Kong, you are overlaying Chakanai on top of Hammer Kong, detaching the Hammer Kong, targeting the Dryden that's in your graveyard, and then you are overlaying a Tiger Mortar on top of the Chakanai, and you are attaching a material to the Dryden so that it has a pop for your opponent's turn. When you hit the end phase, its effect will come back. And then Borbo, we'll talk about Borbo. Borbo is more important than Hammer Kong for sure, but Borbo just says that once per turn we can target. So it's just basically the only effect that we really care is that it can attack directly. Yeah, that's it, because we just need to attack sometimes with Zeus, and 0 attack monsters, yeah, they have a hard time battling without costing you 1,000,000 life points. Alright, so I think I've pretty much explained every single card in the extract now. Yeah, I think I have. So this card is essentially our Zeus access. We're making 4 material Zeus all the time in this deck, just by overlaying and overlaying and overlaying. This deck is super, super, super weak to Nibiru. There's just about nothing we can do about that. The deck is just not good enough to play around Nibiru. This deck was never designed with Nibiru in mind. And maybe if we had more than one Dryden, it would be cool. Like Nibiru would be cool, but this deck just instant loses to Nibiru. So don't say I didn't warn you guys. This was probably the hardest I've had to fight to get to Platinum. So the Drytron deck was definitely harder for me to play, but the power level of that deck was so much higher, in my opinion. This deck, I feel like I played much better. Well, obviously there's just less combo trees and there's less decision trees, but it was a lot. I feel like all my games were grind fests. Really, really not. No free wins with this deck. No going first and making the insane board and just having your opponent scoop. Anyway, I hope that explains my little foray into Zoo up to Platinum 1. If you guys enjoyed, please leave a like, and I'll see you guys next time.